These are difficult times for government at every level, and this is especially true in Illinois. I've been very clear since we passed our budget, fiscal year 2016, last November, that tough times were ahead as we confront the legacy challenges before us, and because I refuse to bequeath our problems to our children and our grandchildren. And tough times are surely here. We're preparing a county budget in an environment where the state has failed to pass a budget for the second straight year, and the national economy appears to be cooling. My budget team has been working for a number of months on managing the fiscal year 2016 budget and developing the preliminary budget for 2017. I instituted the preliminary forecasts in my first term for a simple reason. When I took office, there was no budget, even though the fiscal year had begun, and there was no budget process. I believed then, and I believe now, that our residents deserve better. They deserve transparency and accountability in how and why we spend our tax dollars. So I issued an executive order establishing the budget process, including the preliminary forecasts that we will discuss in a moment. First, as to this current year's budget. With 5 months left in fiscal year 2016, we are projecting a gap of about $48 million. The general fund gap is less than half that amount. The remainder is in the health fund. In March, my budget office issued a directive that informed all department heads, bureau chiefs, and elected officials to hold back 0.5% on personnel spending and an additional 3% on non-personnel spending. This should result in savings of about $5 million this fiscal year. Going forward, we will be reviewing the dollars that have been reserved but unspent and implementing other countywide holdbacks in spending to achieve our year-end goals. The health and hospital system has already implemented corrective actions by reducing non-personnel spending by $25 million. Unfortunately, the picture for fiscal year 2017 is even more difficult. We're anticipating a gap of $174.3 million, about 3/4 of that in the general fund. There are a number of factors which drive this gap. Our legacy debt payments keep increasing. Poor returns in the stock market on pension fund investments mean that we must increase our supplemental payment to $350.4 million in the coming year, $10 million more than we forecast a year ago. Health and other benefit costs are rising faster than inflation. 80% of our general fund expenditures are personnel related, and 80% of county employees are covered by collective bargaining agreements. Most significantly, while our costs keep growing, our revenues are flatlining or in some cases declining. Revenues from delinquent property tax sales are projected to decline $12 million from last year. We anticipate a decrease of $10 million in cigarette taxes for fiscal year 2017. This is partly attributable to the decision by the City of Chicago to raise the age to purchase cigarettes. This is good public policy, and I support it, despite the fiscal challenges. Fewer case filings impact revenues from court fees in the office of the clerk of the court and the sheriff's office to the tune of about $8 million. Excluding property and sales taxes, we anticipate our revenues will decline by 4% in the general fund. We're also assessing the impact of a constitutional amendment proposal passed by the legislature that will go to the voters in November. It would require revenues derived from vehicles or fuel transactions to be used for costs related to transportation and construction and maintenance of roads. If approved by the voters, this could have an additional negative implications for our 2017 budget, and we're continuing to analyze those. And of course, there's the dysfunction in Springfield. You've heard me talk about this for months. We don't know exactly how that will impact us, but we must anticipate, again, that we may not be paid the money we're owed, and this too would impact our fiscal year 2017 finances. This morning's paper suggests there may be a deal. We're anxious to see the details. It's a challenge unlike the ones that we've faced in the past. Since 2010, we've solved for about $1.6 billion in deficits and cut our workforce by 9.4%. We've steadily reduced the taxpayer allocation for operating expenses of our health and hospital system from $400 million when I took office to $121 million in fiscal year 2016. However, even as we reduce many of the operating expenses, we face increasing costs for legacy debt service and pensions. Our bonded debt is 5% less than it was in 2011 when I came in office, 5% less, that's $236 million. Yet our payments continue to rise based on debt we inherited. Our indebtedness when we came in the door was twice that of Los Angeles County, although we have half the population. We've shown that we can manage in tough times, and that will be the case again for 2016. Closing a gap of $174.3 million will not be easy, but residents will be assured that we will do so by making tough decisions required. We will continue to address our long-term challenges and make the choices that the rating agencies and bond markets have recognized. We've made great progress, but our work is far from done.